Lloyd George had looked at Michael Collins and had said, "My political life is at stake." Collins made no reply, but has confessed that he thought, "My life, not only political, is at stake." But Collins believed that this treaty was the best the Irish would get from the Welsh-led English, and he signed. Winston Churchill described Michael Collins at this terrible moment. He rose, looking as if he was going to shoot someone, preferably himself. "In all my life, I have never seen so much passion and suffering in restraint." And after signing the treaty, Michael Collins wrote to a friend, "What have I got for Ireland? Something she has wanted these past 700 years. Will anyone be satisfied with the bargain? I tell you this, early this morning, I signed my death warrant." He was thinking of his sometime Republican comrade Carl Brewer back in Dublin. Perhaps he was also thinking of Eamon de Valera. De Valera's reaction to the treaty was sharp and immediate. He said, "I feel it my duty to inform you immediately that I cannot recommend the acceptance of this treaty." And he included Carl Brewer in his crushing rejection. Bullet-scarred Carl Brewer bitterly and enviously attacked Michael Collins in the Irish Parliament in this new Dáil. He stooped pretty low when he asked, "Can it be authoritatively stated that Michael Collins ever fired a shot at an enemy of Ireland?" Whatever the answer to that question is, Michael Collins had certainly risked his life for Ireland every single day for 4 years. In reply, dedicated, self-effacing Arthur Griffith said, "If my name is to go down in history, I want it associated with the name of Michael Collins." A tragic destiny was now inevitable, and all because there was a theoretical difference of opinion between the realists, Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith on the one hand, and the idealists, personified by Carl Brewer and the politician Eamon de Valera on the other, over their united love for Ireland. They all believed that there would one day be a united Ireland. They were not primarily worried about Northern Ireland, even those who were not taken in by the deceit of Lloyd George and his associates. They were really preparing to fight each other because of the missing word republic, and because of the wording of the oath of allegiance to the English crown, which they all understandably thoroughly despised. The Irish Parliament voted on the treaty. The awful truth was that they were also voting as to which side each person would be in a coming civil war to be fought between old comrades. Great crowds were hushed as the votes were spoken like death sentences. For the treaty, Michael Collins, Arthur Griffith. Against the treaty, Eamon de Valera, Carl Brewer, and Michael Collins' old close friend, Harry Boland. The result of the poll, 64 approved the treaty, 57 against the treaty. The civil war was evenly matched. Eamon de Valera resigned his presidency and finally walked out of the Parliament, the Dáil, followed by his supporters. Michael Collins untypically shouted after them, "Deserters all!" But afterwards he turned sharply on a critic of de Valera, saying, "Leave him alone. If you can't say anything good about him, then don't say anything about him." Arthur Griffith was elected the new president. On January the 6th, 1922, Dublin Castle was formally handed over to Michael Collins. He wrote, "The castle is now ours. It has been a place of terror in the past, symbolizing, probably because of its contents, the English, all that oppression could offer. It ought to be treasured as a national memorial to freedom. On St. Patrick's Day, 1922, Eamon de Valera made a frightening, rebellious speech. He said his followers would have to wade through Irish blood, through the blood of the soldiers of the Irish government, and through perhaps the blood of some of the members of the government in order to get Irish freedom. On the 13th of April, 1922, Eamon de Valera's anti-treaty men began to take over strategic buildings in Dublin, and in particular, this Four Courts. Michael Collins grew old at the prospect of civil war. He tried to come to terms with de Valera, and as a result, Lloyd George sent for Collins and Arthur Griffith and threatened a return of British troops if the anti-treaty men in the Four Courts and such places were not removed. Winston Churchill made one of his speeches: if it does not come to an end, if through weakness, want of courage, or some less creditable reason, we shall regard the treaty as having been formally violated. No murmur of compassion. And of course that Churchillian threat would mean the return of what? The black and tan mentality. And Churchill also added, I do not understand why they do not ring them round and starve them out. And Michael Collins replied, let Churchill come over and do his own dirty work. But the imperial bully boy was too awful a prospect. And on June the 28th, Michael Collins' soldiers opened fire on their old comrades in the Four Courts. They used British 18-pounder field guns. It could be argued that these were the first shots fired in the Civil War. And suddenly, theoretical differences of political opinion became old comrade killing old comrade. Karl Brewer, of course, would not surrender. His building was pounded by shells and caught fire. Someone heard Karl Brewer say, they'll never get me. He came through the flames firing a Thompson machine gun. A Lewis gunner covering the exit replied, and Karl Brewer was no more. Michael Collins grew visibly old. He said, I would forgive Karl Brewer anything. At worst, he was a fanatic. At best, I number him among the very few who have given their all that this country should have its freedom. When many of us have forgotten, Karl Brewer will be remembered. And then he added, there was one brave man amongst them. Michael Collins was now Commander-in-Chief of the Army, and it was the most terrible time of his life. On July the 28th, 1922, he wrote a letter to his old friend Harry Boland, who was now fighting against him. He wrote, Harry, it has come to this. Of all things, it has come to this. It is in my power to arrest and destroy you. This I cannot do. You are marching under false colors. If no word, the most terrible time of his life. On July the 28th, 1922, he wrote a letter to his old friend Harry Boland, who was now fighting against him. He wrote, Harry, it has come to this. Of all things, it has come to this. It is in my power to arrest and destroy you. This I cannot do. You are marching under false colors. If no word